You want people to become better leaders over time, but it doesn't happen through osmosis. These are concepts that every single leader in my organization needs, all the way down to the frontline supervisor and frontline employee. That book, I thought, my goodness, if I could get every team member on my team to think like that. We do it because we're trying to give back to other men who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s who also want to find a way to improve.
Hello, and thanks for watching today. If you are watching on the Blue Collar Leadership YouTube channel, another episode of the Real People Getting Real Results, and you may be listening on the podcast, so just realize you're gonna miss some key things. We'll try to mention them and say them so you won't miss them when my special guest today shares some information that'll be good for you to know about. Mr. Mike Hough, and I'm excited to introduce Mike. Met Mike back in I think it was 2019, and he's actually been on the podcast before, not on the video series here, but it was, let's see, I made a note. March 27th, 2020 was when I released that episode 170. So if you enjoy Mike's episode here, you can go back and catch the audio version of his podcast back in 2020. So welcome to the Real People Getting Real Results show, Mike.
Thanks, Max. Great to see you again, man.
Man, it's awesome. And you're looking a bit different. We'll get into that pretty quick, but I just want to I want you to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do. I appreciate it. I know you're a busy man, many people that you got on your big old team at GAT. So tell us who you are and that sort of thing real quick.
Yeah, sure. So my day job today is I'm the CEO of GAT Airline Ground Support. And so we're a ground handling company based in Peachtree City, Georgia, right there where you guys live. And that's how we got a chance to meet. I'll tell that story in a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're about 6,400 team members across the U.S. and Canada now. We do ground handling for airlines, and we also do catering for airlines. We're the only ground handler in the world that does both of those things. So really cool place to be. That's not true. There might be one other, but they're really small. So we like to make that claim anyway. But this is an organization that I've been a part of since 2017, and I'm going on my 7th year here, and man, it has been an amazing ride when you think about the world and what's changed between 2017 and today. And so yeah, just really happy doing that with the team.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So I remember when we met, you said you were around 5,000. So you're 6,400, man. You guys are growing, and I see you on LinkedIn all the time, adding some new clients and folks that you guys are supporting. So one thing I always ask folks when we get going is if you remember, how did you come to know me? How did we come to know each other?
Yeah, I tell this story a lot. Actually, I tell this story in some of our leadership team meetings, and you're a huge part of GAT's growth too. We brought you in a few times to talk to our team about just the mission and blue collar leadership and how to excel in their own paths. And what happened is I was at home on a Saturday morning, and I think if I remember, it was a crawl that popped up on my LinkedIn. That the title was Blue Collar Leadership, and it was somebody else who had commented on that I knew that commented on the blue book that you'd written. And so I went on to I believe it was Amazon and downloaded that thing and read the first free couple of chapters. I'm like, it's pretty dang good. And it was fast, and it was quick, and it was easy to understand. I thought, interesting. So then I bought the book. I read the rest of the book, and that all happened within 2.5 hour timeline or something. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, Saturday morning, these are concepts that every single leader in my organization needs, all the way down to the frontline supervisor and frontline employee. That book is really written for frontline team members to figure out how to take charge of their careers, stop blaming each other, stop blaming other people, figure out how to own what they can own and drive their career. Whether it's good for their employer or not, it's irrelevant. It was good for them. Yeah. And I thought, my goodness, if I could get every team member on my team to think like that. So I just, went to the end of the book, and I'm looking for a way to contact the author, and I'm surprised enough, his email address is in the book. I'm like, okay, well, let me send an email. I sent you an email. About 20 minutes later, you wrote me back. First of all, I've never sent an author an email before. Second of all, I never thought an author was ever going to write me back the second I sent it to him. And third of all, what happened next, I definitely didn't anticipate, which was we're talking over email a little bit, and I ask you, hey, how do you get this stuff inside an organization? How do you take these nuggets of content and put that in every single team member's head? And you said, well, you asked me one question, where's your company based? And I said, well, it's in Peachtree City. You said, well, I live in Peachtree City. And I said, that's impossible. That's uncanny. So surprisingly enough, you suggested we should meet for coffee. Yuri and I did meet for coffee. We spent a couple hours together talking about, what GAT was doing, what you guys were doing, what we were after, what I was after, culture, drive, ambition, what we wanted to get done. And I said to you, so that's all awesome. Now, how do we make it happen? And you said, do a book study. So that's what we did. And we are still now, well, that was 2019, 2024. We're 5 years later. We are still doing book studies every single week. I sit down with my leadership team. We read a paragraph of some book that right now we're on Atomic Habits, another great book in space, right? You read a chapter, we all read a paragraph, and we spend 15 minutes doing that. And you talk for another 15 or 30, not talking about airline stuff, not talking about operations, not talking about making money or paying bills. We're talking about leading people. And so ever since that day, ever since that time with you and Rhea, that's what we've been doing. We've gone through your entire book series. So we started looking for other avenues to engage on.
That's outstanding, man. And that's why I love you so much, Mike. You get it, and you didn't stop doing it because you see the value of it. So many leaders, Rhea and I may do a video actually for this channel this week. And that's one of the things I'm going to talk about is what leaders don't know about when they start a leadership development initiative, that sort of thing. Like you got to keep the drip going. It doesn't matter what it is. You got to do something. It's got to be a book study discussion, a podcast discussion. It's a video discussion. Some people could watch these kind of videos and talk about it with their leadership team, that sort of thing. So that's very powerful. I'm very impressed by you, especially at your level. You got 6,400 people, man. I got to get you to tell real quick because that's awesome. And I got all kind of people that listen to my podcast. A lot more listen to the podcast than watch the YouTube channel because we ain't good at promoting anything. We just do it and wait for everything to happen.
You do it because you love it. See who shows up.
Yeah, that's right. And but tell my folks, because I've had some phenomenal people, frontline people, interviewing, not just CEOs of big companies, but I interview the entry level folks too. And tell folks what you started doing in the airline business a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm from a tiny little town in Marquette, Michigan, and I was working at McDonald's, which is where I met my wife, by the way. And I tell that whole story in the other podcast. If you want to hear that, it's good. She was the cute little fry girl, and I was the grill guy. So
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so we got married when I was 22 and she was 20. I was again working at McDonald's, and I called my dad and I said, Dad, this place just stinks. It's year 4, and this is a great line. That I just told on Facebook the other day to somebody else's post. And I said, Dad, I had just applied to be a shift manager for the 4th year in a row, and I got rejected again, and I need something else to do. And he said, well, what did she say to you? Our store manager, her name was Sarah. I said, Dad, she said to me, I'm not management material. He said, well, not everybody is, son. So I heard there's some great jobs at the airport. I said, okay, great. So he's got a buddy who worked for him, but he also worked part-time at the airport. Trying to just get some free flight benefits. So that's where I started. I went out to Marquette, Michigan Airport, my little small town, and I first stopped at the Northwest Airline counter. That's where this guy worked. They said, no, we're full. I walked over to the next counter, which looked really nice, American Eagle Airlines counter, and they said, no, we're full. We haven't had an opening in 15 years. So then I walked over to the shoddiest looking counter, ugly old backdrop, hadn't been updated in a long time. It was United Express, and it wasn't United Airlines, right? It was one of their regional airlines that operate under their banner, and they took me on at $4.35 an hour and started throwing bags. That's how I got.
So you were loading the luggage on the ramp going up inside of the plane?
Oh, it was even better than that. So in those days, we're talking about 19-seat turboprops. So we would do, show up at 4:30 in the morning. You check everybody in, all 19 passengers. You'd load them. You'd put them on the manifest where they needed to go. You'd do the weight and balance. Then you'd go out, and then you'd de-ice the airplane, you'd fuel the airplane, you'd load the bags, you go back in, you get everyone through security, you load them on the airplane, and then you marshal the thing out and you wait for the next one to come in and do it all again. So we did absolutely everything in those days.
That's awesome. So it's got to be really cool for you to be CEO of a company that does that with thousands and thousands of people and clients and customers. I mean, that's a lot more pressure today than doing what you were just described, right?
Oh man, that was probably the most fun job I've ever had in my life. This one's not always as fun every single day, right? There's a lot of pressure. But I'll tell you, the value of having started there is the value in being able to connect with our team members at whatever level, and understanding what they go through every day. I mean, when you think about working at an airport, the vast majority of people today don't even want to go to work anywhere. They don't want to have to go into an office, right? Our team has to go into work 8 to 10 hours a day, but their day doesn't start when they show up at the airplane. we work in big airports. They got to park in an employee parking lot, get a shuttle ride in. That's, time they got to take away from their families. Then they got to go through security. That's time they got to take away from their families. Then they finally get to work, and work's hard. I mean, you're talking about all weather conditions, heat in the summer and cold in the winter. You're out there in the ramp in elements, or you're in front of the customers, and you're dealing with not necessarily always the most happy people, right? And so that's being able to relate to what that's like every day. That's been very beneficial for me in this role.
Outstanding, man. So we're gonna hop around different things. There's so many things I'd like you to talk about, but I got to talk about, or get you to talk about, your personal transformation, because you're a different guy than when I met you physically. I still love who you are mentally, but you've changed mentally too. You just can't see that part, but that's the biggest change you've had, is the mental component. So
for sure.
So I know, and I don't know. You'll tell me in a minute. I know kind of who inspired you to do that, but I know you. If I ain't mistaken, I saw you guys had some type of another Marine guy did some training with y'all. Maybe he got you on fire. So you done had 2 Marines that infected your brain back to back.
That's exactly right. Yep. So the first guy was a Marine, a guy named Steve Eckert. And I ran across Steve, I think again on LinkedIn. And Steve was talking about trying to get senior level leaders fit who had let their lives slip away from them, et cetera. I was in sports my whole life. I was still in the gym. I was in the gym lifting weights. I was jogging, doing whatever, but I was not doing anywhere near enough to keep up with my lifestyle. So, I ballooned up to 270 pounds. I just got fat and really unhealthy, and I wasn't able to do the stuff my family was doing. It started to really affect me. Very successful as a dad, very successful as a husband, very successful in business. Obviously, that's gone really well, which means that in very successful in my faith. So my family, my finances, and my faith were solid, but my fitness was junk. And you don't realize what that does to the rest of your life until you get it under control, and how much better everything gets when you do that.
Yeah.
So about 2.5 years ago, I started to engage with Steve, and Steve got me started. He got me started down a path of discipline and focus and energy. And then at that same time, there's a Navy SEAL that he was partnered with, a guy named Ray Kashkarev, and Ray and Steve were doing this group called Leadership Development Team. And so brought them in to start to talk to my organization about what they were doing. And at that point in time, the switch finally flipped. I was kind of running through the paces with them, and I'd made a little bit of progress, but it finally flipped in me to say, listen, this is real. This is, if you do these things and you develop this discipline around what you put in your body and what you do in your spare time to get your body motivated, then the rest of that discipline will permeate in every single thing else that you do. And so all those other elements will get much better. So then I got paired up with this group that's now no longer in existence, called Battle Ready. And Battle Ready was a co-company of the leadership development team group. And so this is a group of 100 and 150 guys, whatever, that were all in this program together. We're getting our macros planned for us, getting our workouts planned for us. And I really started to notice a separation between those who were willing to do the work and stay disciplined and those who were not. And the changes were amazing, right? And I started seeing these guys, and I'm still in my infancy trying to figure it out. I'm down maybe 250, whatever. And it got even more real for me. If I just stay on the line and I make these things daily non-negotiables, how much protein I'm taking in, how much carbs and how many fats, total calories, am I progressively overloading my workouts? Am I doing all the right things there? Everything else is going to improve. And man, did it ever. So anyway, long story short, I got down to about 193 pounds. That was way too light for me. But it was, super low body fat percentage. And then for me, it was the next phase was, okay, got it. Shaved all that off. Now what can I do? Well, good news is I now know all the triggers. I now know how macros work. I can figure out how to get back to where I want to be. So right now I'm about 215, strongest I've ever been in my life, stronger than I was playing high school football. And man, it's just been good. It changes everything. The energy levels are through the roof. By the way, if you're listening, you're thinking about this for your family will follow you. I didn't have to say a word to my wife, to my kids about changing their diet, about getting the right workouts in. Guess what? My wife's now underneath the barbell herself, benching, squatting, deadlifting, and overhead pressing 4 times a week. It's amazing.
Leadership's influence, right, Mike?
It is. Yes, sir. Learned that from a guy named
Hough. You already knew it, but yeah, you talked about or in that book, really talking about in the Blue Collar Leadership book, that chapter, someone's always watching, about being a role model, right? Because somebody is always watching. That's exactly what you just talked about. But you say you went up from 193 to 215, but that wasn't, you didn't go back up with fat though. I saw that video, and Ria's gonna show your website. They can go watch that video, and then they'll see you at the end where the your before picture is at the end actually. So you in there working out. So anybody wants to check that out, go to, if you're listening, you can't see it, but it's on the screen. If you're watching, lifebydesignformen.com, and check out Mike. Mike didn't look like that when I met him. I don't know. I don't think you were 270 though when I met you, but you must have been on the way to that.
I think I was probably on the way. Yeah, and so Life by Design is a group of three of us that went through this Battle Ready program. We found each other there. We were able to really take control of our lives and do the things we need to do from completely different walks of life. One of the guys, former Marine himself, I guess there's no such thing as a former Marine. I just insulted you all. A Marine himself. Alcoholic, on his third marriage, had a strange relationship with his kids until he figured this part out. And now everything is better. Everything, all of his relationships are better. His health is certainly better. He was in the concrete business. He quit that business. He was a senior level leader there. Decided to go into the gym business instead. He's cutting his teeth right now, trying to grow his gym membership, but he's doing it on his own. I'm so proud of him. His name's Shane. And another guy who's an architect who's done really, really well, both professionally and personally, but then had this other problem, this weight issue. Anyway, we got through all that together. And we decided, listen, let's give back. Let's do this for other men. Let's help them with their family, fitness, finance, and faith. And let's build a group of trust and encouragement. And we'll do programming for those that want to pay for that. We've got that there at the website. You want to come with us. We'll do programming for you on your macros and for your health. But we'll also round out those other elements. We talk a lot about how to grow your business or how to do better at work, how to improve in your faith and how to focus on that, how to make time for your family, do the things your family needs. And so for us, there's got to be cost to drive the outcome, but kind of like you, we do it because we love it. We do it because we're trying to give back to other men who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, who also want to find a way to improve.
That's awesome. How old are you now, Mike?
I'm 48, 49 in January.
49 in January. And I know you mentioned something in a text we were talking recently, and you said you got to put on the muscle now, so all you got to do is maintain it later. So when does that slow down in really adding muscle? When is that for men?
Yeah, I think you can, as long as you get your hormones in check, which you do through your diet, and you focus on protein intake and you do all the right things, you could probably pack on at least a couple of pounds of muscle every year until about 60. And then you really start to decline from there. And there's a really great book. If you haven't read it yet, Mac, it's called Outlive by Peter Attia. Have you heard this book yet?
No. Outlive? Yeah. Peter, what's his last name?
Attia, Attia. He's a doctor. And in his book, the whole vision behind this book that really helped me crystallize this is that we all want a long lifespan. We all want to live till we're 10,000 years old. Well, really, that's not what you want, because there's a lot of people who live till they're 60. And then they live another 20 years. Those 20 years are low quality. They can't get out of bed. They can't get off the couch. Those are not good years. What you really want is a long health span. How do I get to peak performance as long as humanly possible? And then I just fall away. That's what I'm after. And the way to do that is to get that muscle mass on your frame now and get those basic human movement patterns in your process now, so that when you're 75, you get off the couch easier than you did when you were 30. That's the mission.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So I got about 5 years. I still might can add on a little if I get busy.
Yes, you can.
My problem now is my back and both my shoulders are problems, but there's still plenty of stuff I can do. I just got to figure out what that is.
Well, I'll tell you what, we got a lot of guys in who start with bad issues, and then we figure out how to program around it. There is a way.
Yeah, man, that's good. That's good stuff. So I'm real proud of you for that. And while you're talking about that, I just want to share something. Anybody who's listening, who's maybe getting fired up about your story too. I got a book. You probably read it or seen it already, but it's called 10 Foundational Elements of Intentional Transformation: How to Become Your Best Self. And anybody out there listening, that's really part of the mental. It's a mental roadmap, how I transform myself mentally. So it applies to a lot of things. But you were talking about the book studies, Mike. The first episode in the Real People Getting Real Results series is with a guy named Jason Denham. I've been mentoring him since 2013. He's vice president of a electrical construction company. He started up basically from scratch inside of a larger construction company for the CEO. And he led his team, I think it was last year, he led his team through he does 3 chapters. The first Saturday of each month, he volunteers. And anybody who wants to join from his company or outside his company, he volunteers to lead a hour and a half online book study. And he uses our books. So far, he's been using mostly ours, but he went through that book And because he was leading his team through that book and talking about transformation, I think he lost like, might have only been 60 or 70, but that's still a lot. It ain't only, but he's lost like 80 something pounds. I can't remember if he did it that year, but he was just, doing it from month to month. Everybody would see his transformation, and his wife got on board, and she was losing weight. So that's, like you say, whenever you get serious, it's pretty powerful. And Mike, just Ria's got it on the screen right there, bluecollarleadership.com/book study training. Just for you or your team, you may not have realized, but we created a 45-minute video of us with a PowerPoint teaching how to facilitate the high impact book study like we learned in Guatemala. We've had a podcast on it for a while, but now we got a video where it's a PowerPoint. So if somebody's actually going through it to learn how to do it, it's a much better teaching aid right there. So since you had that up, I just wanted to mention that. So
I appreciate that.
So you want to talk some more about your personal journey, or you want to talk more about GAT? Because at some point, I want you to talk about, what kind of jobs you guys have and that kind of stuff for sure.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you how. Yeah, let me tell you how my personal journey has bled over into GAT. So 2 weeks ago, there's always now talk around the water code. So I come in and I'll be honest, I'm wearing tighter shirts because I look good in them. So
yeah, man, I know that's right.
So then people start talking to me. They're asking me questions. What are you doing? How you doing it? It's amazing, man. You look great. How's it all gone? You got, a funny story. I was coming out of customs. Michelle and I went and did this amazing trip in Canada 2 weeks ago. And coming through customs, in Canada you're pre-clear, so the U.S. customs officers are on that side. We're leaving Vancouver, and the customs officer said to me, "Hey, man, you wrestle bears for a living?" I wish I did, but just to get that kind of positive affirmation. But so anyway, at work,
that's awesome.
You talking to team members all the time, and so a bunch of them got together, unbeknownst to me, and they decided they want to have a health challenge. So my transformation spurred this whole desire by everyone to have their own health transformation, and I'm helping coach, right? So I'm helping. What do you want? What are you trying to achieve? You want to get smaller? You want to get stronger? What do you want to do? And then the teams, 2 weeks in, they're killing it, doing a great job. Obviously, if you're a leader of people, and that doesn't matter what level, any level that you're in, whether we like it or not, we are judged by how we appear. That's just nature. And so embrace it, man. Use that to your advantage, because if you can have influence just by how you appear, you're already 50% in the door. Now you get to share ideas and thoughts and opinions that can really help people transform.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I mean, even like for you guys' jobs, like you talk about, most of the jobs out there in GAT, most of them are physical jobs. The majority of them, right? They're physical. So even someone coming for an interview, you can't help but see somebody when they're being interviewed, right? And what the job is about to be. So someone who looks like they maybe can't keep up with that job versus somebody that can. And if that's all you knew about two people, if they were behind a glass wall and all you could see was their appearance, not just their health appearance, but how they carry themselves, how they're standing. Are they on purpose? It's one of the things I talk about. Somebody could be slouching, leaned up against the wall. Somebody could be standing tall, shoulders back and chest out, and that's all you know about them. Probably gonna pick the one standing tall just because they live in life on purpose, right?
For sure. And it goes to all sort of personal grooming habits, how you comb your hair and whether or not you take care of your facial features, whatever else. But yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. So going back to the organization, so we talked about when we met, it was at 5,000, now we're at 6,200 team members, but GAT also had a major impact during the pandemic. You can imagine. So what we do is we do things that airlines outsource in stations where they don't have their own staff. So we'll do ramp handling around the aircraft. So you look out the window when you're flying, you see those guys out there driving those little cars all over the place, tugs and belt loaders and pushbacks. Those are our guys, right? In a lot of stations where airlines don't have a large enough presence, or it's not a hub operation for them. And then oftentimes the people you're interacting with at the ticket counter and the gates, those are our team members too, that are checking you in and then they're loading you on the airplane. And then all the things that are unseen, like cabin cleaning and unless you use wheelchair services, wheelchair agents and cargo handling and all the things that airlines are outsourcing. And so, the difficult part for us is during the pandemic, airlines withdrew their flight schedules. Well, the way our model works is that we're priced based on an expected flight schedule. We give you a cost for every airplane that we're about to ground handle.
Yep.
And it's RFP driven. So it's very competitive in nature. There's not a lot of volume. There's not a lot of sluff in your price, right? And so suddenly when airlines peel back volume, they may still operate in, pick a city, Albany, New York, but what used to be 10 times a day is now 1 time a day. That's disastrous for a company like us because we can't now just go raise our price. The airlines also are not generating any income, so there's no way to do that. So we had to navigate through 2020, 2021, and in Canada, even into 2022, that country took a lot longer to come back with, one, no capital. Our banks got scared, and so they pulled all capital from us. Two, we had to reduce from that 5,000 team member count to about 1,300 team members. So that was during that period of time. Three, we had an operating environment that we had no idea when it was going to rebound, and how long can we live on this cash flow situation? Four, customers who were paying a lot slower than they ever paid before. So all those pressures. Oh, and five, wage escalation. So I don't know if you remember what happened during that period of time, but wages at fast food restaurants and hotels and everywhere went through the roof. So markets that were paying $14 an hour were suddenly $19.50. And I'm supposed to go to an airline who's not making any money and tell them I need you to pay me $5.50 more an hour or 40% more per hour. How does that work, right? So we're navigating all this stuff, trying to figure out. And there were plenty of days where I didn't know if we were going to make it over the next hump. And we did, thank God. And we came out the other side much stronger than some of our competitors. And that's how we're able to grow back to where we are. So in terms of revenue, when I joined in 2017, we were about 64 million in revenue. We'll close out this year, 2024, about 245 million in revenue.
Yeah, man.
And trajectory next year is well ahead of 300 million. And if you saw the curve, it looks like this. So major uptick, major drop, major rebirth.
Congratulations, man. And I know you give your team credit because they're the ones who made it happen. I see you on LinkedIn all the time. If anybody wants to see how to lead as a CEO at a high level on LinkedIn, just follow Mike and check him out. You engage with your team all across the US and Canada. Quite often I see you on there interacting with them, saying something about their post, or that's really cool. That's what I like about you. I mean, you put your email up here where people can reach out to you personally for GAT or for your life. Let me make sure I get it right. Life by design for me. And I was going to say living, but I was like, that ain't right. Life.
It's close.
Yes. So that's outstanding, man. And yeah, you did. I mean, I guarantee you were worried during the
we were worried.
pandemic, because that's a lot of stuff to have to navigate. Any one of those major things is big by itself, but it was like the perfect storm for a business like yours.
Yeah, it was tough. And, the most challenging part is the impact it has on people, right? There was a period of time where we had to enact pay cuts, and the exec team decided that we wanted to take a larger share of that than everybody else, which I'm so proud of them for doing. Now, the good news, though, is eventually we were able to snap that all back and make up for it. But in the short run, no one knew what the future held. And we didn't impact the front line at all. We did everything we could not to impact the front line on pay cuts at all, while the rest of us tried to figure it out, because the mission was just stay alive, and we did that. And so now look at us. Now we're right back in the driver's seat. And we're, like I said, close to 300 million as we close next year. I've got every confidence in 3 to 5 years, because of what this team does every day and the level of performance they deliver and the relationships we have with our customers and how they think about us. 3 to 5 years will be $1 billion. And so, wow, it's exciting to be on that kind of trajectory.
There'll be a celebration when you cross that line.
Yes, sir.
That's cool. So you mentioned a few things I want to talk about and blend them together. You talked about, when you discovered me and Rhea, and we got to talk to your team. A couple of things I want to point out is you said earlier you've been doing book studies ever since then. Really, you found the value of them. We talked about it. You started doing it, and you ain't never stopped doing it, and that's phenomenal. And like I tell people, it doesn't matter what books you use. You got to be doing it, right? And so you guys kept doing it through everything you just described, all those tough times. You were still doing it. I know we spoke to your team in Peachtree City. We spoke to your team out in Dallas, and then we spoke to the team up in Vancouver when we were up there. So you guys didn't stop the leadership development, but that's one of the first things to go. A lot of leaders, when times get tough, the stuff you don't have to do, which that's one of them, you don't have to develop your people. So tell me and anybody watching, because you guys did rebound, but what is it about a leader like you, a high impact leader, that says we ain't cutting that out when you could have?
I'd love to claim it's my own complete desire to do it, but it had its own energy in and of itself. I mean, if you ask my team, my direct reports, executives who've been in a lot of businesses for a lot of years, I mean, very senior folks. One guy has been in our industry for 45 years. What their favorite part of the week is, it's the 30 minutes we sit down and talk about a book study. And so I couldn't possibly take that away. They killed it. There's no way they'd let me get away with that. But that's not the sole reason. The other reason we didn't is because think about what happened during that period of time. We're all suddenly living on our computers in our living rooms, in our bedrooms, and wherever else you can find a space to work. Everyone said, "Hey, look, we're a high performance team. We're all going to keep going. Doesn't matter whether or not we're in the office together." And to a degree, that's true for the people you already have. But what about the new person that you bring in? And they're going to work from their first day from work at home, not around anyone else,
Alone.
What does that feel like?
Yeah.
And so you had to create a presence of community even in that environment. And that's one great way that we're able to continue to do that. We try to do a whole bunch of different things that helped along the way. But I think truly the book study and continuing that during the most difficult time was probably one of the best ideas that we had. I think it really helped us
man.
maintain.
And you didn't do those really, you didn't, and I'm asking because I really can't remember. And but you didn't do book studies until we met, because you asked me, how do you actually go do it? And I still tell people all the time. We was with a client last week, and I told him when we leave, if you don't do book studies, or you don't do podcasts and have a discussion, or watch a video and have a discussion, you're just wasting your time. If you're just having an event once or twice a year, you're just wasting your time. And I don't want to waste people's time. And I don't want people giving me bad word of mouth advertisement after I left, because I was only there once, a year, and that was all they ever did, and it didn't work. And then they say, well, we tried the Mac stuff and it doesn't work. Because what I want leaders to know, and you know it, but I'm also talking to other leaders that are listening.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the leader of your company. I want you to be the leader of your company. And that's exactly what you've been talking about that you've done. But so you were there at 2017, you met us in 19. So, and then you started really doing this stuff in 20, the book studies, and you haven't stopped. So what was it like before you started the book study, and then after you started? What kind of different things did you see? The silos not be so, the walls between the silos were not so thick and so tall after you started doing book studies, or what kind of things can you share?
Yeah, for sure. And we had the same affliction both at GAT and every other company I ever worked for, which was this idea that you get everybody in a room, you spend a lot of money. And don't get me wrong, those have value. We still do them.
Yeah.
We brought you to a few. You spend a lot of money for a 3-day event where you tell everybody about the future of the organization, where you're going, you get them all fired up. Everyone's with each other and they're feeling great about being with each other. And they go back, and guess what? The day-to-day creeps right back in. And all that stuff they talked about becomes a distant memory by day 4. It just does. It's happened in every organization I've ever been in. And I love those meetings. I love the energy, and I love getting people together. But you have to augment that with something that's ongoing, constant leadership lessons. So, we talk about this every time I'm in front of one of our customers. One of the slides I put up is Blue Collar Leadership Series, Max Story's picture on it. And I say, we do a book study, and here's the guy who taught me how to do it. And here's the reason we do
thank
it.
you.
I'll send you my slide deck. I'm not BSing you. It's in every single deck I put in front of our airline customers. And the reason I talk about it is because I explain to them, if you're not doing this today, you should be. This is how you get your team to think about leadership all the time. You want people to become better leaders over time, but it doesn't happen through osmosis. I certainly did. It didn't happen through osmosis for me. And so then what do? We send them through computer-based training, or you do every 6 months, you do a supervisor program. It's not impactful. What's impactful is a constant drip, as you said, a constant drip of new ideas, new thoughts, new ways to think about it. Even if you get nothing out of that particular chapter or that day, you get the idea that I have to constantly improve myself.
Yeah. So I really appreciate you sharing that. That's one of the reasons, I started this series, because I know so many people, and at all different levels and all different industries, who are getting real results, which is why I called it, real people getting real results. And, it's interesting you say you put that up, and I really appreciate you. And I hope you keep putting it up, but I got to tell you,
I will.
None of those folks have ever reached out to me, because the reason I want to tell you that is Jason Denham, the one I was telling you I've been mentoring since 2013, he buys our books. And when he's meeting other general contractors and those kind of folks, he'll take them a bag of books. We actually got some bags printed up just specifically for him, so he wouldn't just have to carry a stack of books in by hand, that he could put them in a bag with Blue Collar Leadership on it. He asked me the other day, and he's been doing this for years. he asked me the other day, he calls me Mr. Mac. He said, Mr. Mac, he said, any of those people I've been giving them books to ever called you? And I said, no, sir. I said, that's why, I talk to him all the time. And you already know this. And I mean, you're still out there trying to motivate and inspire somebody to follow your lead and do something. And that's what Jason's doing. And it is so difficult. It's so difficult to get almost anybody to buy into this. That's why we travel around, the whole country and sometimes outside the country. There just ain't many leaders like you that truly, truly understand it. So I'd just like you to share from your level, because you meet a lot of people just like you, maybe running a whole lot bigger companies than 6,400, right? Your clients, They got tens of thousands of people.
Yes.
And you probably meet with their CEOs, I imagine, at times. And a lot of companies, some of the big companies, they do the type stuff we're talking about, not usually book studies, though, not the kind that we teach, but they do something. But I always tell people, if you're just doing it to check a box, which a lot of large companies do it just to check a box because their competition's doing it. So then it's kind of like the military in a way. They're using leadership principles to manage better, but they're still managing, kind of like lean. When you use lean principles to do traditional operations better, you're still traditional, even though you're cherry picking things. What is your opinion? And it could be anybody at any level. It doesn't matter if they're a CEO or any level, but what do you think it is that's different about people who embrace this at a deep level?
We talk about this. It's funny, the corollaries between what happens at Life by Design and what happens in leadership at GAT and in other places I've been. We talk about this at Life by Design all the time. And Shane is one who gave this to me, one of our co-leaders. He said, Mike, part of the problem with our guys that pay us, Mac, they pay me money to build a nutrition plan and a workout plan, a biweekly coaching session, a weekly group meeting. And then they don't show up to their biweekly coaching session, or they don't actually track their macros, or they don't do the workouts. And then they show up with 10,000 excuses. And I would say to him, Shane, I don't get it, man. These are grown men who are paying me to make them better, yet they don't do the work themselves that they need to do. And he'd say to me, Mike, the problem we have is that they're interested, they're not committed.
Yeah.
And so that is exactly what happens when I present this to senior leaders that are our customers or anywhere that I talk about it, is people go, oh, that's a really cool idea. That sounds awesome. And how does that work? And I'll spend 15, 20 minutes talking about it. And what do you get out of that? And hey, man, and when I go to operations, I now have frontline people who will quote to me things like, well, I'm a 6 when I'm hanging around 2s and 3s. I want to hang around 7s and 8s. If you read Mac's books, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I love hearing that from frontline team members. That means it's working. You're hearing the message. And if you only heard that message, that's amazing. And so I tell these people that, and so it sounds like they're really interested. I'm like, you want to know more? Call me. I'll help you. I'll help you figure it out. Never get a call because they're interested. They're not committed. And until you can get that switch flip from interested to committed, you'll never get the results you're after.
Yeah, and it's easy for people with money to spend some money to get you to do the stuff. That's the easy part. If you got money to spend some money, it's like I used to tell people when I was charging for coaching. I'm like, people who done spent tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they're still not getting results. I remember I'd tell those folks when they'd call me and I'd say, stop spending your money. Don't spend any money with me. Stop spending your money. You ain't never going to change.
Yep.
I said, if you're going to do the work, you don't need to spend any money. Just go do the work. Go pay the price and do the work.
Yep.
Well, it's the same thing, really, even with what you're doing. They need a coach, but it's easy to spend money. It's hard to go into the gym every afternoon or to go walk or to get on a bicycle or swim or whatever somebody's doing, right? That's the hard part. If you're spending money, it's pretty easy if you got it.
Well, and we talk about the fact that, okay, so back to Life by Design, there are things that, we have an app, and the app says, here's the workout you got to do today. Click go. It's going to walk you through everything I want you to do. Reps, sets, going to give you your rest breaks, all that. Super easy. That's easy. But the app also has some other non-negotiables in there. You got to drink a gallon of water. You have to read for 10 minutes. You got to send a gratitude text. You have to do some breath work. You might add in there that you got to do 20 minutes on an incline of 12% to 3 miles an hour that day. It's depending on the day of the week, right? And our guys will routinely get the workouts done. They'll do 85, 90% of all the workouts, but they'll miss all those other elements. And I'll be like,
the little stuff, that's the big stuff.
Yeah. And also in that app is you got to track your macros. And here's what your total calorie plan is. And here's what percent has to be protein, fat, and carbs. And you miss it every day. And I tell folks, well, why do you miss it? And the answer is, well, I was at my kid's birthday party and it was around. I'm like, okay. So if you would have pre-planned what you were going to eat all for the next day, it's just like leadership. If you would have pre-planned and put it in your tracker of what you're going to eat the next day, How easy would it have been to say no to the cake at the party? Well, it would have been really easy. Well, then do that. What I don't know how to make you better. If you're a leader, if you were thinking about how to improve your operational performance, wouldn't you put together a plan that said, "Here's how I'm going to improve my operational performance tomorrow," and then go do those things? Or are you just going to react to the airline's irregular operation schedule and just do whatever it comes up that day? Two different outcomes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's great. So you got any success stories you could share from anybody at any level in your company that's just grown, whether it's health wise, mental wise, or career wise? You got anybody that you want to call out by name potentially with a
Yeah, there's some great leaders inside the organization who've really grown.
And you don't have to
Emma
say their
Roberts,
name if you don't want to.
no, I will. Emma Roberts is our SVP of Safety Training and Quality. We originally hired her as VP of Training. She had never been at a senior level role before, but had run VP of Safety, had run some safety divisions inside of airlines and some other aviation-related companies. We brought her in. Oh man, it's been a couple of years now. I'm going to get that part wrong because it feels like forever, but it's been probably 2 or 3 years. And Emma, from day one, was so hungry to grow as a leader, so hungry to do more. Anything that ever felt like it was a little wonky inside the organization, first one to raise her hand said, "Let me take that on." And she is by far, in my opinion, one of the best safety leaders now in the industry. And to watch her be able to do that, to go grow, has just been so much fun and so amazing. She didn't have a lot of things to shave off. She didn't have a lot of rough edges to clean out. She just needed opportunity and exposure and experience. And she can achieve anything. She's amazing. We've got a number of great young leaders that grew up inside the organization, started out on the ramp and then became GMs. We got a guy right now who runs our Burbank operation, Alex Prince. He came out of tiny little Dickinson, North Dakota. He was a ramp agent there. He said yes to go run Omaha operations, which was a bigger, larger scale op, did a great job there. Then he went to Salt Lake City to run a large scale operation for a major airline there for us, did an amazing job. And now he's at Burbank, one of our single largest operations. You don't think about Burbank as a huge opportunity, but as an LAX adjacent airport, everyone wants to fly in and out of Burbank, not LAX. Yeah. And so there's a ton. We handle just about every airline there, and he's doing a phenomenal job. And we got 50 stories like Alex out there in the model. Just people who started on the front line, really willing to just grab that brass ring and push themselves until they get to the next level.
That's awesome. Are the folks down in the org chart, are they doing book studies, or is it just your team leadership?
Yeah, your team. So right now on this, so what we'll do is we'll get 3 weeks out ahead at the exec level, then we'll push it down a level, then we'll push it down a level.
Just like we talked about.
Yeah. So we're at week 2 right now with Atomic Habits. So right now, no one's doing a book study. They're all done with their last book, other than our exec team. But next week, we'll start now at the RVP level. The week after that, we'll start at the GM level. The week after that, we'll go to the OM level, and we'll go down to the soup level.
That's you're doing it, man. That's what I tell people. It's so easy if you'll just cascade it down. The same book goes down, and now the leaders are going through it. When the next level of leaders get the book, and now they can have conversations with the leaders up above who went through it, and then they can have confidence. Hey, they're doing it. We're doing it. They know it's going to be passed down to the next level, and they're going to be doing it. So you're a great model of actually doing what I talk about, and that's why you're successful, Mike. Is when you hear the good stuff, you stick it in your pocket. You don't set it back down. When you pick up the good stuff, you take it with you. And that's who you are as a person. All these things you've learned in life, any high impact person, that's what they do. That's what makes them a high impact individual. I always tell people, some people say, what makes you different than everybody else? When I hear something is good, I take it and run with it. And that's just the difference. But have you heard, and everybody who comes on here that's in the US, we send them a complimentary signed book as a gift. And I was going to ask if you knew or heard about or have read Ria's newest book a year or so ago, The Ladder of Influence.
Well, I saw it posted. I hadn't had a chance to read it yet. I'd love to get a chance to read that.
Yeah, so we'll get you a mailing address, or we'll take it up here to the headquarters. It ain't but a few miles. We'll drop it by. Because I remember when you read the Frontlines book, you said you gave it to your daughter. And this book from Ria, The Ladder of Influence, when I read it, and I say it everywhere we go. Any person before they graduate high school, they ought to have to read that book. It ought to be required reading for high school students, The Ladder of Influence, because it takes you through. You start out with control of self, and then it's character development, it's the second step, and then competency development, and then commitment to developing others is the fourth step, and then contribution of service over time is the fifth step. So it's really, and it's got a lot of stuff. How do you apply it at home? How do you apply it at work? She's got a little checklist. So you'll like that one. But might be one you want to get for your daughter once you see it.
Well, that sounds awesome. That's something I forgot to tell you is we are now officially empty nesters. All three of our kids are in college, so
No wonder you getting swole up and buffed up. You got something to do.
I got time again. So so my oldest daughter is at grad school, University of Louisville. She's working on a master's degree in social work, and she's got a great internship that's going really well. She's got a year left. My son's at UK. He's working on a degree in economics, and he's in his third year. And my youngest just got dropped off at Bellarmine, and she's on the dance team there. And so they're all close, but they're all far enough to stay away if they want to.
And that's awesome. And for people didn't pick up on it, or we hadn't even mentioned it, your headquarters is in Peachtree City, Georgia, but you actually live in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm in Louisville today, which is unusual for a Tuesday. Usually I'll fly in on Monday morning and back out on Thursday afternoon. But we've got a customer event tomorrow in New York, and the next 2 days in New York. So it didn't make sense for me to parse the week. So I just stayed home and got some stuff done here. Because when you do that, like I do, the honeydew list doesn't ever shrink. I'll tell you that much. So when you get a day at home to make stuff happen, it's always good to do it.
That's great. So I know you got to be going pretty soon, probably. But from a CEO level of a 6,000 plus company, for people at any level, what are character traits that stand out to you in your company or just in general when you're meeting people? But really, to get the CEO from loading luggage on a ramp, you've climbed up the org chart. So you've been hiring and promoting people a long time. But today, 2024, what's your top 3 character traits you look for that if you ain't got this obvious character trait, you probably ain't gonna make it on my team? What are those?
Well, some other books that I'll use is a couple book titles that I think are really great referential for this purpose. First is Grit by Angela Duckworth. If you've read Grit, I'm sure you have Grit.
Yep.
Yeah. It is the defining characteristic that's not easily defined, which is what is it that makes a great athlete, a great CEO, a great orchestra performer, a great anything. It's this idea. What's the difference between them and everybody else? It's this idea that you just are going to accomplish it, that you're going to do the work, no matter what gets in your way, and you're going to accomplish it. So when you can get that sense of grit in somebody like young Alex Prince or Emma Roberts, that is a defining character trait. So if you haven't read that book, I think it's powerful, super powerful. More important than intelligence, more important than physical ability, grit. And then the second thing for me is extreme ownership. Okay, now you've got grit. Are you willing to own it? Are you willing to say, I'm accountable, no matter what happens, no matter who did what? Are you going to own it and figure out how to drive a more positive outcome? That I got from my dad. So the part of the rest of my story is I'm the youngest of 7 kids growing up in a tiny little town in Gwinn, Michigan. My dad worked 3 jobs. Both my mom and dad blue collar workers. My mom went back to work when I was 6 years old on my 6th birthday. Never let her forget it. And I was just youngest of 7 kids. It was all boys except one girl in the middle. And I was telling my wife this story just the other day. We were talking about some stuff as a kid, and we had a garbage shed, Mac, a garbage shed on the outside of our garage, because 7 kids and 2 adults make a lot of garbage in a week. And so we lived in Michigan, in the coldest part of Michigan, the Upper Peninsula, where it snowed all winter long. So we're putting trash bags in the garbage shed all week. And imagine this middle of December. Well, you're the 6-year-old kid who doesn't want to take the garbage all the way out to the road, which is probably a little over a quarter mile, because you got to do that in a sled. So it's your turn. It's your week to do the garbage, because we all share chores. That's how it worked there. And so instead of the 12 bags that are in the shed, you take 6 because you're cold. Well, guess what happens when May rolls around? And that's happened every week for 12 weeks or 16 weeks. There is a ton of garbage in the bottom of that shed. And so then it would become clean out the shed. And that was for all of us to do, because we all let it happen. My dad didn't lift a shovel or a pitchfork 1 inch. That was, you will get it done. You own this problem. You will solve this problem, right? And that's when I read Extreme Ownership, that resonated with me as one of the great ideas behind that. So grit, extreme ownership, and then last is just integrity. And integrity is an easy word to say, hard word to define, but man, you have to own when you've made a mistake. You have to own when you don't know something. You really have to try to learn what you don't know. You gotta rely on the other thing is as a leader of any type, you don't know 10% of anything. And so you gotta figure that out early. The more you can gain great confidence by admitting you don't know something versus acting like you do and then failing. That L will last with you forever. So get your confidence level up by admitting what you don't know. And by the way, you create this camaraderie from your team when you give them credit and you let them know that they know something more than you do. You create this esprit de corps that's just unparalleled. So those would be the three things I'd say. You want to be a great leader, figure those out.
Yeah, that's some good stuff right there. And every one of them you talk about, I can reference them in my own life. My mom used to say, she used to tell me I was so smart, and I knew that wasn't the truth, but she said it anyway. You know, moms love you; they're gonna try to hype you up anyway. She's like, "That's why you make all this stuff happen." I said, "No, I make it happen because I won't stop. I'm gonna make it happen." I mean, that's kind of like something I've said my whole life. Make it happen. It's a little slogan when I was president of the mountain bike chapter that Rhea and I started and founded up down in Auburn, and that was our motto: we make things happen, and we did. And so that's the grit piece, right? Yep. I'm gonna make it happen no matter what, and that's a big deal. Have you read Dr. Henry Cloud's book Integrity? Since you mentioned that,
I don't think I have.
Read that.
Get my pen out again. I don't think I have.
Yeah, Integrity. Since you mentioned that might be one you like to read. Okay. Talks about who you are leaves awake, kind of like a boat. And
yep.
But the two quotes that I remember I talk about in reference, you've heard me say them when probably in a room with you, is character is the ability to meet the demands of reality. That's the way he defines character. And then he defines integrity as the courage to meet the demands of reality. And those two different things. You got to have the character, but then I got to do it.
Yeah.
And that takes courage a lot of times. Like even when you go in and you're trying to get leaders to lead, just to get a leader to lead, even to do a book study, that takes courage. A lot of times people don't have the courage to lead because now, even though they're the leader, they're going to be ridiculed by other leaders or people on their team that ain't bought in. And even you, when you started, I think I remember you sharing that story before. You had to have courage as a CEO, even though you're the CEO, you had to have courage to start the book study with all these executive folks who report to you saying, we back in third grade.
That's right? exactly how it landed when I launched it. Yes. Yeah.
And now, so what caused you to persevere through that? Because that's tough. That it seems simple, but it's tough as a CEO to have your team feeling like that about you when you know what you're doing is the right thing, but now you got your leadership team looking at you like, what are we doing?
I don't know at what point life changed, but up until a certain point, I always was very worried about whether or not I was doing the right thing. Am I in this group? How do I act? In that group, how do I act? This whole idea of I don't really know who I am, right? I don't know who I am. At some point that changed. I know who I am. And once I know who I am, I don't care whether or not you like what I'm going to do.
This is who I am.
It's who I am. And so that was what allowed me to get through that. Is this is good, and I love it, and we're going to do it. And if you don't like it, that's cool. You don't have to be here. And so the good news is that's not what happened. Everyone came on board.
Good stuff. So I know we're close to time. You got to go. You got anything that?
I got one more thing for Mac. I was thinking about work chatting. Hold on.
Okay.
I didn't need I promise. So last Christmas, my son gave me this knife.
Do it right. Do it right.
I said, Braden, that's awesome. Why? He said, because that's what you taught me. Whatever you do, you got to do it right.
Yeah, man. That's good.
So thanks, man. I appreciate the time. It's been a lot of fun.
Yep. I know you're a busy guy. I really appreciate you carving out some time. And you can text me your mailing address and we'll get you a copy of Rhea's Ladder of Influence. And thank you very much, man. Stay safe out there, and maybe I'll pass you in the airport again. I think we saw you up in Minneapolis that time. You're going to look like a stud this time coming down through there, though. I'll be looking for the tight shirt.
Thanks. Well, listen, I'm going to be a audience member from here on out. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
All right. Thanks, man. See you.
See you.